Hello, everyone. This is my final project for 613. This is going to be a project on the Detroit Lions and how they've been able to restore the roar, as they say. This is my favorite team in the NFL, so I thought this would be really cool to do a project on them and how they've been able to become one of the better teams in the NFL over the last couple of years. So for starters, brief background, the Lions hired their current executive vice president and general manager Brad Holmes, as well as Dan Campbell in January of 2021 after a pretty bad tenure under Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia as GM and head coach respectively. After a pretty abysmal 4-19 and one start in 2021 and a little bit into 2022, the Lions have been 35 and 9 since week 8 of the 2022-23 season. They've won back-to-back NFC North division titles, which is the first time they've actually won the division in the NFC North. The last time they won a division title was called the NFC Central. They won their first home playoff game and hosted their first home playoff game at Ford Field. Their first playoff win since 1991. They appeared in the NFC Championship game in 2023-2024, the first time since 1991, and they got the number one overall seed last season after going 15 and 2, which is the franchise record for wins in a season. So how exactly did we get here? Well, it's mostly because of this offense that the Lions have. After the 2021 season, they ended up promoting current now Bears head coach Ben Johnson to offensive coordinator and quickly turned the Lions into a powerhouse, led by Jared Goff at quarterback, running back Jahmyr Gibbs, wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown, among so many other players on their offense in offensive line, receivers, running backs, just everybody you can name it has greatly improved over the last couple of years. Their dominance stems from how balanced the attack is, and we're going to look at that here in a second. On the next slide, the Lions have actually averaged about 36 passes to 28 rushes per game, and they're averaging 7.2 yards per pass and 4.8 yards per carry on the ground, which are both extremely good numbers considering usually you can't have it's hard to have one uh, with the other. Usually a team is really good at passing, maybe not as good at running the ball, and vice versa. Taking a look here, I have a couple of graphs on this slide and the next slide, but these two are the most important, I'd say, as it graphs running plays and passing plays per game, and then rush yards per play and pass yards per play across the NFL over the last 3 seasons. And as you can see, the Lions rank in that top right quadrant in both of these graphs, which is the best place to be because that means you're running a lot of passing plays and a lot of running plays. You're not super unbalanced like some other teams might be, or you're having enough plays in the game, unlike some other teams that maybe their offense isn't very good, so they're not staying on the field. So you can see the lines here on the top left in the run plays and pass plays per game. They just squeak into that top portion, along with the Commanders, the Cowboys, Cardinals, Colts, and Browns. And then on the bottom right here, we see yards per play uh, for running and passing, and the Lions are well within that group. Among a lot of other good teams we've seen over the last 3 years in the NFL, the 49ers who've been to a Super Bowl, the Ravens who've been very good, the Bills, both of those teams have been to the AFC Championship game the last few years, the Green Bay Packers, the Philadelphia Eagles who won the Super Bowl this past season and were in the Super Bowl in 2022. They lost to the Chiefs that year, who went back to back and then made the Super Bowl this year. So a couple of teams you see there, really good offenses over the last few years, and you can see the Lions among that group uh, showing how good their offense has been and how much it has helped over these last 3 years for them getting better. In this graph right here, we can see passing yards, passing plays, excuse me, in yards per game compared to each other, rushing yards and rushing plays per game, and then rush yards per game and pass yards per game, both mapped out. And again, the Lions are in the top right quadrant, which is a lot of passing yards and passing plays per game, rushing plays and rushing yards per game, and then rushing yards and passing yards per game. And it all stems from those previous two graphs that we've seen where they're getting a lot of yards per play. Obviously, yards can be skewed in different ways. Like maybe you have a lot of passing yards because you're losing in a lot of games, but the Lions are very balanced and they play from the front a lot of times, but they are capable of coming from behind to win games. Rolling the dice. Here's the next part of this look at the Lions here. One of the biggest, worst kept secrets about the Lions is how much they go for it on fourth down. Obviously, it is very hard to stop the offense in general, but it doesn't help when you have to play all four downs of a set of downs. to stop the Lions. They have one of the highest rates of fourth down attempts in the league over the last 3 years. They actually have the second most in the NFL, just behind the Cleveland Browns, as the Lions have 110 fourth down attempts since 2022. Um, but they also have a 57.27% conversion rate, which is in the top 10 in the NFL since 2022. Didn't factor in the 2021 numbers as well, but the Lions were also going for it a ton on fourth down in that year, although they were 3-13-1. Um, as it looks compared to the top 10 teams in each category, the Lions and the Eagles are actually the only two teams in the NFL that are ranked not only in the top 10 in fourth down attempts, but also fourth down conversion rate. And those two teams are arguably two of the best in the league, at least in the NFC, over the last 3 seasons. You can see both of them here in the top right quadrant of fourth down conversions and fourth down attempts, and fourth down conversion rate compared to winning percentage. So you see a lot of the 5 teams that are actually in the top right quadrant in fourth down conversion rate and win percentage. The Lions, the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Eagles and the Buccaneers. All 5 of those teams have been to the playoffs in the last, at least multiple times in the last 3 years. Two Super Bowl champions in the Chiefs and the Eagles. The Bills have been to the AFC Championship game. The Lions have been to the NFC Championship game in these 3 years. The Buccaneers have made the playoffs, um, if not 3 times, at least the last 2 seasons, winning the NFC South. But as you can see in the above graph, the Chiefs and the Bills don't go for it a lot. They are not a team that likes to go for it on fourth down. They trust their defense a lot more often than not. And that's not to say that maybe the Eagles and the Lions don't. The Lions have certainly not had as good a defense as the Eagles have had, at least this past season. But the Eagles employ the tush push a lot more often, so that explains why they'd want to go for it on fourth down a lot. But the Lions don't necessarily use that strategy very often. They just like to go for it on fourth down, and it doesn't matter the situation; it could be at any time. They have gone for it this past season on fourth down in a tie game when they could just take a field goal to win it. So you never know how to stop this offense, especially when you don't know if they're actually going to come off the field. The last part I want to take a look at is unpredictability. And this is where I use a logistic regression to take a look at this. With how good the Lions offense has been of the last 3 years, it has to come with a level of unpredictability for defenses to guess what they're actually going to do. What you can actually see is this graph on the top left, or this visualization on the top left here, that the predictability has actually gone up in the last 3 seasons. That would make sense because the offense that the Lions have had is been the same for the last 3 years. Ben Johnson's been the offensive coordinator for all 3 of those seasons. Dan Campbell's still the head coach, so the system is probably the same. The personnel has remained largely the same, so it's going to be a little bit more easier for defenses to figure out how to stop the Lions. Not like it's actually working, but they're actually figuring out it's easier to predict what kind of play they're going to run, whether it's going to be a run or a pass. But in those first few seasons, you could see it was pretty hard to predict their offense. It still is, as we take a look here on this next slide. These are the top 10 teams in predictability over the last 3 seasons. Predictability and unpredictability, I should say. On the left is the most predictable. I actually made an error on the right graph here. It should be least predictable offenses, with the Eagles being 33.7% predictable, which is very, very low. But you can see the Browns 2024 offense is at 40%. The Lions 2022 offense was at 41, so it was really close. And in terms of the most predictable offenses over the last 3 seasons, the Lions at 45% still wouldn't crack the top 10 out of the 90 offenses that could have been used in this last 3 seasons. So still probably middle of the road, closer to unpredictable, but more closer to middle of the road at worst for the Lions over the last 3 seasons. So in conclusion, it's been a pretty good mix of balanced play calling, unpredictability, and aggressiveness on fourth downs that have contributed to the Lions' resurgence as one of not only the best teams in the NFC, but best teams in the NFL. And this has led to them being one of the most unstoppable offenses, gaining a ton of yards every play, being super explosive with all the weapons that they have. The only question remains now is with the new coaching staff that they brought in, offensive coordinator from the Denver Broncos, will they be able to reach that same level of success with different coaching staff? But with all the players pretty much still there, you still got Goff, St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, et cetera, all the way down the list, it's still pretty likely that the Lions will at least be a force to be reckoned with in the NFC North and probably in the NFC for years to come. So I appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your summer.